single person.
Sorry to interrupt you. I suddenly realised I haven't
Sure.
recorded this, and you're saying so many good things. So carry
Oh,
on.
wow, yes, amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing
carry on.
things.
Sorry, Nisha. Carry on.
No worries. Just to say that, the difference, maybe I'll just briefly stop here by saying that the difference between tolerable stress and toxic stress is the presence of relationships, protective relationships, and resources. And in the clinic, we would often think, gosh, how can we ensure that every child has a protective, caring adult that they can rely on, which ideally should be a parent figure, right? But sometimes that figure isn't there. And the contract with teachers has changed in some way, and that they're somehow supposed to be this protective adult. And we want to be able to support that, because we know that the school is the social space where we see a real crossroads of the community. And it's one of the last social spaces where we really see that. And so how do we support those adults in those relationships with kids, to be able to inquire rather than wait for somebody to put into words what they're going through.
Yeah, fantastic.
Bravo.
Yeah. I wish Miss Kendra had been there for you, you guys. So I'm thinking about that relationship, that keyword relationship, and as a teacher, I know that I'm very much a relational teacher. I very much know that children learn much better if they have a relationship and a connection to their teacher. But also I'm thinking about parents, and I'm thinking, as you were talking about that, and I was thinking about how children's stress triggers my trauma, and I get upset by living with going to work and having those children. But I then think about Kathy's situation, where she's living with 4 children with that kind of trauma. And I haven't warned Kathy about this question, sorry, but I wonder, what that's like. How do you get through, basically? Because it must be that experience, but 100 times more so, if you're living with it.
Thanks, Susie. I'm doing this from our local church because I can't do it from home, because there's having the 4 there. But I loved the stuff on the video about the working with the family, because it was such a beautiful example of working collaboratively, compassionately, and empathetically, and it's so needed. I mean, there are times when I feel within our household, gosh, we're living in an abusive relationship, because all the signs are there, being sworn at, the whole push me, pull you, I want you, I don't want you, I want you, I don't want you, violence, the threat of that, and living constantly with that is exhausting. And it's very triggering. It's very isolating. It can be, because how you present to the world is quite different, and quite often as well, how your children present to the world is quite different. So, I've had examples where my youngest, I've had a lovely day out with a friend, and we get in the car and he closes the door and he turns on me, like within a moment, because actually he's really disappointed that that day's finished and he just can't cope with big feelings. And I think that's interesting, because much as, this whole typical thing of you want your children to be better in public than they are at home is true to a point, but sometimes the gap between that is huge. And I just think I'd want to say to schools particularly, be aware that you are dealing with traumatized parents as well as children. And I'm saying that from someone who has had a very stable upbringing. So I'm not coming with a list of aces myself. And I see some of, as part of our church and community project here, some of the mums who are dealing with it. And and have got high ACEs scores. And I mean, they amaze me. They absolutely amaze me that that they're here, that they're still here, that they are trying to do the absolute best for their kids. And yeah, and I really want to know how to support them better, because I think, how do you do that when you're going through this, maybe on your own as well? I'm doing it with my husband, you know, and that makes a massive difference. How you do that on your own without any space, I don't know. And actually having people who get it, who support, who ask how you are, is just, it's everything. And having a greater understanding of what's going on, because I did that for probably, I mean, I went through 4 adoptions, so that would be about 7 years without the words attachment or trauma being mentioned. And at the time, super nanny was the thing, so I thought that's how you parented, and it was disastrous. I didn't know why, because it seemed to be working for everyone else. And I do wish I knew then what I know now, because from the start I'd have done it very differently, but it, you know, that is what it is. But it does take its toll. But actually having others there, having that shared buffering, if you like, in a way that is supportive, in a way that's non-judgmental, in a way that believes what you're saying, much as that video showed. I just thought that was just lovely practice, is absolutely key.
Thank you, Kathy. I think that's something that I've seen that film 5 times now, I think, and something that I noticed in the very first one that I then refer to when I do ACEs training now, and I talk about that woman who goes home and she visits the mother who's sweeping up the remnants of some row that's happened the night before, and it's really upset her. And the next shot, she's doing the sweeping. And I just think it's a bit like having that matriarch in the village who just was there to put an arm around you, make you a cup of tea, and listen, and then say, "Are those kids in bed?" you know, and just that. I think we're missing that. A lot, you know, young families are missing that, and communities are missing that. I think we're all missing that. I know, you know, my mum isn't around. You know, it's having that person, and you know, I'm not saying, you know, I'm amazing, but there's a family down the road, and I don't have any kids at home now, and I'm just there. They know I'm around, you know, if they need me, and I go in and I drop in and have cups of tea. They come over here once a week, and it's just it sort of dilutes that stress a little, you know, and I think that's what I'd like to see that rolled out as a model. I think, you know, it's just I think it does take a village, doesn't it, to raise a child, and our society has become so individual, and so it's, you know, it's my child. You know, it's up to me how I raise my child, and actually that's a very lonely place to be as well. If you put yourself that side of the fence and you don't let anybody in, that's a very lonely place to be, and you end up struggling, and you set yourself up to fail in a way because of that, I think.
But I think also, Suze, there is a thing that we live with quite a lot of shame about it as well, because our families are not operating in the way that we thought that they would. So it's that there's that dynamic as well, I think, and that's where the whole it's a really difficult dynamic, that, and it's very easy to isolate because of that.
Absolutely. Yes, Amanda.
I was just going to say, I think for a lot of women, you know, the thought of asking for support and then worrying about social service taking kids off you because you are admitting that you're struggling, I think that is a real barrier, and that needs to be broken down, and that can only be done with social workers understanding childhood trauma, but also the effects of childhood trauma in an adult's life, you know, in the mum's life. And, you know, I turned to drugs, you know, at a very, very early age, prescription drugs, to push down my emotions because I couldn't mentally cope with it. and that turned into street drugs. And then I ended up losing my children. So, you know, this cycle needs to be broken. So it needs to be child and mother, and everybody needs to be on the same page, you know, and understand the effects of trauma and how it can impact, like I said, childhood and later on in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Susie, what did you want to add?
Yeah, it's typical listening to everything that people are saying, because I am, you know, I'm living through that relived trauma and that toxic trauma again, because my daughters have experienced, you know, crap with me, and it's, you know, it's amazing to know that there's such big things out there to help people, to enable families to get on better, because I feel isolated, I feel cut off, I tend to drugs, I tend to prostitution, because I had no people around me, you know. I lost my child when he was 4 years old. I'd asked social services for help, but they said, no, sorry, we can't help you. Yet they had done 6 months previously. I was only asking to, you know, redo the same thing, and I got shown the door. So, you know, it's just, this sort of thing needs to be rolled out, you know, I think about 100 years ago, really.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah,
I suppose the little steps we're making now are going to, you know, account for lots. Thanks, everybody. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Susie. Yeah, I think that's why, you know, I set up Hey Aces really is just to get the word out there, really, and get people talking about it. So I wonder, oh yes, go on, Nisha.
I just wanted to highlight, I mean, just in this conversation already, what is underlined for me is that it's not a one-time thing, you know, that this is a public health issue, and that just like with wearing seatbelts or brushing your teeth, you got to do it every day. You've got to attend to it all the time. It requires constant attention, and that it's not just one time that we ask the question or one, you know, and I know, Kathy, you live this every day with your kids, right? I mean, like, this is an ongoing, it's an ongoing attention, it's an ongoing position that one takes around the, you know, the behavior that's manifesting. And also, I think it just underlines the need for us as adults in these scenarios to take care of our own, attend to our own ACEs and our own mental health, and to find a way and spaces to be able to express the challenges that we're up against, so that we can be as freed up as possible to attend to another. It's a bit like putting your mask on first. Again, a public health intervention that we do all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that idea of it is something we need to keep coming back to. I mean, something that worries me a little is that Public Health England have made a very good little video. It's an hour long on educating teachers. I think it's for teachers, so it could be for anybody, on ACEs. And schools through the pandemic, because there were staff meetings were online, they were saying, right, staff meeting next week, everybody watch the Public Health England video. And then the next week it was on to, we're talking about science, we're talking about PE, or the RE policy needs updating. And it was done, it was forgotten, it was ticked off the list. And my worry is that it's actually inoculating schools against taking action and changing their approach. And it's actually backfiring. So that's something I plan to sort of challenge with Public Health England in some way, if I can, and say, could you just do a follow-up questionnaire or something, just to see what actions they have taken as a result of doing that training. Yes, Amanda.
Can I just come in there as well? Second, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Louise. Yeah.
Go on, Amanda. So now I was just going to come in, and I think one of the issues is when these things come out is schools do things. So we do ELSA, or we do. It's not about what we do, it's about what we are as a school, and it's about how, as people talk about it, it's those relationships, isn't it? If we don't get those right, so if it isn't what everybody in school is doing, not just what your emotional well-being worker's doing, not just, you know, what a couple of members of staff are doing, but everything that child experiences in school in order to get it right. So I think that is one of the issues, that, you know, it's a change of culture that we need.
Yes. a shift of mindset.
Mm.
Yeah.
If I could just jump in there, I just so appreciate that, Louise. And I would just add to it that the thing that we do or how we respond when it doesn't go right is such a great example and a great opportunity for learning, because I feel like that is often where we see the most challenging behavior, when somebody's frustration tolerance is really, really low, and they're bound to, explode because of, they didn't quite go quite the way they wanted, or they were asked to move seats, or whatever the case may be, or they pull back and they withdraw. Expanding that frustration tolerance requires that when things don't go right, we find ways of responding that are full of grace and welcoming of imperfection and flexible and all of that. But and I guess that is what we mean by getting it right, that we have a different approach to getting it wrong. If that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, Nisha. Amanda, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that having trauma-informed, ACEs or trauma-informed training is all well and good, but it's got to be implemented in every single day from there on in, and it needs to be revisited and updated and reviewed, and we need to learn from it. So it's all right having a tick box of, oh yeah, I've had the training. That's no good. It needs to be put into action. And I think far too many, because I think trauma-informed training shouldn't just be for teachers and social workers and the police. I think it should be anybody who works with women or children. And trauma-informed practice is needed in this country desperately.
Absolutely. In Scotland, they've rolled it out, and they've included people like people working in hotels and hospitals.
Everybody.
Yeah, anybody's working with people, basically. Yeah, I think it's what we need, so that parents aren't stressed because people are judging them when they're out, for instance.
Totally agree.
So I wonder if the people who aren't spotlighted, we've only got Ellie, Sonia, Tracy and Louis. I wonder if any of you would like to ask questions, add to the discussion at all. Oh, we've got somebody joining the group.
I'm happy to just listen.
Okay, Louis. Thanks, Louis. Louis is the creative genius behind our film.
Thank you.
Thanks, Louis.
Yeah.
Thanks, Louis. Yeah, amazing job.
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder if I put this out to the whole group, I wonder if there's one thing in the film that really touched you or really spoke to you, that we haven't already sort of mentioned. Any moment. I mean, I always see something different whenever I watch that film. Something else stands out for me. I've written absolutely tons of notes which I haven't even looked at. Oh, I know. I remember. I'm not the only one. I think that was something that was really nice. Is to when people do become aware of ACEs, and then everybody has it's open. Oh right, okay, yeah. You've got ACEs, I've got ACEs. I'm not the only one, and but why is it? What made the difference to me? Why am I? Why did I end up okay? Actually, what was the difference? What did my community give to me that made the difference for me, even with those ACEs? And the answer is usually a relationship, a friendship.
Definitely.
It was
friendship for me.
Love connection from someone. Yeah.
I needed that connection with other people in order to, be better.
I was quite hit by the bit that he said about obviously it being felt in the body, that it's within the body, even if it can't be seen. So it's experienced, and the fact that children, we all too often say, oh well, I can't remember it, or that was in their childhood and they'll have forgotten it by then. But it was that fact that it's there, sort of held within that body, whether we can see it or not. I thought that was quite a poignant point be made.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a really, where is it? Don't know whether you've heard of this book. It's a very good read. The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and it is all about how the stress, the impact, sort of stress that you experience very young is how it's held in your body, and then how it then can express itself later on at inconvenient moments. Go on, Nisha.
I'll just say there's a great follow-up to that book, and it's called The Body Can Change the Score. It's a follow-up paper, and it has to do with the somatic strategies we use and the relational strategies we use to change the score, to intervene, to be able to create a new internal environment, a new relational environment.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I really want to read that.
I think my brother's practicing that after recovering from cancer, you know, that kind of way to healing it. Yeah, it's a good way. Interesting read.
I want to say, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go for it. I just had a question.
Just the, the piece around the Miss Kendra program, and I know there are so many wonderful examples in that film of projects that attend to trauma in different ways. But the piece I'll highlight there has to do with the imagination. It has to do with our capacities to believe in this figure of Miss Kendra, which we know simultaneously, is the teacher, is the parent, is the community member, just like children might hold in mind a Santa Claus or fairy godmother or tooth fairy type figure. At some point, they hold the complexity of that. This is somebody who cares for me. That's an imaginary figure, but they are simultaneously somebody who's actually real in my environment. And it was one of the ways that we found to spread the wealth of this program, right? That she could be everywhere. This person could be omnipresent, or the idea that there are caring adults in the world, that we are in a caring society, hopefully starts to interfere with the idea that we're alone, that we're alone dealing with this, So I just wanted to mention that in terms of the value of imagination, the value of creative and artistic approaches to attending to some of the stress that we're up against and that we observe in the kids that we work with.
Yeah, I remember that one of the comments was that the use of the drama therapy in the school increased a level of calm across the school. And right now, I think that this is what the children need. Not only have they got their normal everyday stress, as it were, but they've got this pandemic stress. And as a supply teacher, I'm seeing from very distressed children. They're angry at having been made to sit in front of PowerPoint after PowerPoint, and they're stuck in their desk because they can't visit their friend's desk. They can't even hand the books out in some schools because they might touch somebody else's germs, and yet they just desperately need to have a good belly laugh and a play and a run. And I just wish, as a supply teacher, I could say, right, we're all going outside now, but I can't because somebody else is out there and it's another bubble, and I can't burst their bubble. But yeah, so it very much is in the body. You can see it in children. It's so obvious.
I think what's important.
Yes,
Go on, Kathy.
I was going to say, I think what's also really important to say is there are things that work. So actually, key relationships work. So if it's a neighbour's child or an aunt or uncle or whatever, it works. Things around this thing called therapeutic parenting, which is a very simple thing of pace. And it's a new way of doing it. So it's recognizing that actually, if a child's like up here, there's no point trying to resolve the situation. You've got to regulate them. And the first thing of pace parenting is playfulness, and it works. It's almost miraculous how actually you can just calm a situation and get it to a place where it can be dealt with. We certainly found it, particularly with our oldest child, who's now just about to turn 19, and having, as I say, having parented without this knowledge, and then having parented with some knowledge of what was going on, but it wasn't personal. And I think teachers sometimes have to remember that as well. So, I mean, Louise, you mentioned, and it's such a simple thing, but the way we speak about things. So, you talk about attention seeking, and you've probably heard this thing of, actually, if you reframe that, so this child isn't attention seeking, they are attachment seeking. The way you view that is then completely different. And so it's those things that actually are really quite simple. There are some strategies and creative ways, as you were just saying, that we can use. So it's not stuck. And I think someone says that, don't they, in the video? The thing is, it doesn't have to stay there. Not to be a pressure, but actually to be an encouragement. It can. Things can change, and that it's just that encouragement, isn't it?
Sorry, just to carry on with that, Kathy, that what you said about that playfulness, and it kind of sort of comes back to what was said earlier about children with all this COVID anxiety. And when our kids came back into school, there were smiles, it was welcoming, it's having that warmth, it's not making it all rigid and scary, it's allowing that playfulness still to be there. But just thinking as well of dealing with children who've had huge meltdowns. You've got a child who's lashed out and kicked because they are, and again, this isn't a child kicking off, this is a child in meltdown, and you talk about that language as well. So this isn't a child being naughty, this isn't a child, sort of being bad, this is a child who just cannot cope. And they've had the meltdown, and in that calming down period, as they're regulating, you're absolutely right, bringing in that playfulness, and it's about, as the adult there, as the professional there, it's about not being, tight-lipped and angry and how dare you. It's actually, let's regulate this, and let's, sort of, let's soothe it, let's get it ready, let's have a bit of a, it might be a bit of a joke and laugh, bring that playfulness in. And then going back to what Nisha said before, there's that learning moment. And I mean, we've been for years, we've been a restorative practice school, and that's a huge thing in restorative practice, that every moment, wherever you're healing and resolving an issue, you're helping children to learn, you're helping children, we're modeling how to deal with conflict in an empathic way, in a way that, sort of listens to everyone and values everyone. But yeah, I think, just coming back again to the playfulness, that is so important, and the never taking it personally. I don't know how many times I've had to say that, but you can't take it personally, and we're in the very privileged position, which would be harder for the position you're in, Kathy. We do something that we call tag teaming. So if I'm dealing with a child and things are very difficult, and I can feel that my buttons are beginning to be pushed, and I'm beginning to get that emotional response, then I'll swap out with somebody and I'll go and take a breather, because that's my issue, not the child's, and they don't need to see that. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I could carry on forever, but I'll stop now.
I love that. I love that approach, the tag teaming approach. That sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think I wonder if that's something that could be rolled out beyond teaching. I do lots of training with people who work in residential care homes, and they could do that, couldn't they? There was a team of people, and I do say to them, be aware of your own. What are your trigger points? What are the buttons that they press? Because they will press them, and find out what they are, and make sure you've got somewhere to go to calm down. Yeah. So where are we? So I wonder what our hopes are for the future. What's next for Hull? What do we hope will happen as a result of this? Now we've we're spreading the word, we're getting people talking about it. What next?
I think we keep pushing it. We have seen the benefits in America. We've seen the benefits in some schools. Why aren't we looking to the schools that are really making a difference and not replicating them, but let them guide other schools? you know, let's, you know, schools teach each other, let's social services teach each other as well. Do you know that it needs to have that ripple effect, you know,
Yeah.
so it reaches everybody.
I would definitely say the ripple effect. Yeah, give us some things to actually go into schools with. Give, you know, a one-off demonstration within primary schools and get it rolled out, like you say. Get people talking. I do believe pushing it. Well, I'm on the bandwagon. I'll certainly go, you know, places and speak to people. Happy to talk about ACEs. It's an amazing thing, actually evolving and growing more and more.
Absolutely.
I'm also thinking about educational, like just what sort of local and then, you know, larger level municipal and statewide, we would refer to it here in terms of policy reforms are conducive to ensuring that there are the resources necessary in schools, the time needed for teachers and administrators to be able to train as, you know, as needed, you know, supports for parents. What kinds of policy reform, are conducive to trauma-informed environments in schools, to ACEs being taken seriously? That's something that we're up against here, right? We can, as many of you have already said, it cannot just be one player. It's a whole system approach. So how do we create a conducive environment for that? And I think some of that has to do with ensuring that the research around this gets to the decision makers who are able to then, you know, to shape it. And that needs to be informed by your lived experiences, period. I mean, those of you close to the ground, living this truth. I mean, I think what I'm hearing from Susie, you've created a film. There are so many brilliant examples of what could be helpful here, where these, where you create platforms for voices to be heard.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what's happened in Scotland, isn't it? That it did get to the level of government, and but I think England is very behind, aren't we? They're talking about increasing the school day so people catch up academically and things like that.
Crazy. I was very lucky the other day. Sorry. Did I interrupt somebody? I can't remember. I was very lucky the other day. I represented Emma Hardy at an APPG, an all-party parliamentary group, looking at, it's called the ACEs group. So Emma, one of our local MPs, is a part of an ACEs group that is looking at lobbying Parliament to shift funding to prevention rather than cure. And so it was led by the Wave Trust, who are running the 70-30 campaign. They're aiming to reduce the ACEs by 70% by the year 2030. That's their mission statement. There was just discussion about how the strategy really, and their idea was that we'll get other APPGs on board that are all talking from the same hymn sheet, and together we'll put the pressure on and hopefully get some money. But it seems a long way away yet, I'm afraid. Yes, Susie.
I'd just like to say, you know, after being on the television about childhood adverse experiences, you know, my children and I was struggling to get food on the table. My daughter had actually been invited into the House of Commons and told Tony Blair to get his comb over straight. So you've got my daughter on side as well, and she's young and up and coming. So I thought that was warranted. You know, the government need to take it on board big time.
Yeah.
We have to reach the decision makers, don't we? I think that is vital in this.
Yeah.
And, you know, even campaigning to our local council, you know, because, you know, they're involved in all of this, just like the government is. And, you know, it's so obvious that the government are letting down women and children in this country, something dreadful. You know, our services are broken and our systems need to change within. And this is one of those systems that need that inner change.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think as well, you know, sort of going back to, you know, thinking about governments, thinking about in schools, one of the biggest barriers that we have is constantly having to meet unrealistic targets that have nothing to do with children's well-being. It has.
Yeah.
Now, I can, so I have been questioned in the past about my focus on emotional well-being of children. People see it as soft and fluffy. They see it as unnecessary. I had somebody who once said to me that the best pastoral support a child can get is a good set of results. That's absolute madness. Yes, it's important that children achieve, but children can't achieve if they're living with toxic stress and it's not being supported. And one of the barriers that is hugely there in education is changing that mindset and getting people to see that if we want our children to be, sort of get out of the poverty trap, we want our children to be successful and have fulfilling, healthy lives, we have to deal with this. Yeah, English and maths, of course, are important. No, I wouldn't be a teacher if I didn't think they were. But if a child isn't ready to learn, if a child can't focus and listen and take in what's being said, then, we're fighting a losing battle. So I think there's a huge mindset, but I think also there's barriers, massive barriers there put by the powers that be, put in by the government, league tables, hoops to jump through. And I think, sadly, that's a really tough one to crack with schools. I don't think it's impossible. I think, sort of these things can always be done. And I think right now we've got this moment on the back of the pandemic. Everybody's talking about mental health. Now it's time to do something that matters, that's serious, something that's actually going to make a difference, not just, as I say, do something for 5 minutes or do a bit of training and everybody knows about it, actually changing culture.
And I think something that both Amanda and Susie said earlier, that is equally true and important of social work and social care, because that is such a sticking point. The whole system of early help, and depending on who you get, whether it's, I know a number of people here who could do with that early intervention, but are scared to ask, because either they've already had children removed and they're hanging on to the ones they've got, or because they've heard of other people, or because they rightly have felt that pressure as soon as they've asked for help, and they've done exactly the right thing and said, I need some help here, but immediately that seems to put them in a radar they don't want to be in, and then we're operating from a place of fear, and that's and that's triggering of all sorts of trauma, isn't it? And so that, and I don't even know how you begin to do that, but it's huge.
Well, there's a repeat of this film screening in person on September the 18th. So you can all help by bringing people, perhaps not you, Nisha, a bit expensive, but everybody else. So, if we can get, teachers from other schools, other parents, friends, local counsellors, if you know someone who's a social worker, bring them to it's Trinity Methodist Church on Newland Avenue on the 18th of September. A screening in person with a panel in person, and it would be great to keep it going. And I will try and get another screening, because that's what I'm just following Scotland's example. That's what they did. They just flooded the country with resilience screenings and panel discussions, and then it grew, then it flourished. And I have now got a way of getting hold of resilience screenings for free. So we could have one at your church, Kathy, St John's, but it's through churches, which are usually located in the middle of communities. So Rev Tony will be doing one, hopefully, at St John's, the other St John's as well. We had them all planned, but COVID happened, and so they got cancelled. But the offer still stands. That free resilience challenge still stands. So that's a start anyway. And also, Kathy's, we're launching a campfire for parents tomorrow night, aren't we, Kathy? So I've not been very good at advertising it, so you may get 2 people, but it's a start. But yeah, so that's that peer support of other parents supporting each other through that really tough job of parenting children with trauma. So thank you, everybody. We're at 2 minutes over time. I'm amazed at how much we've covered this evening. So thank you, everybody. It's been absolutely a pleasure to talk to you all, and I can't wait for tomorrow. And it'd be really nice to see you at different things tomorrow. It's obviously optional to do the whole day, but in and out is fine. So and thank you very much, Nisha, for taking the time to join us from New York as well. As it was a real bonus
Thank
to
you.
have someone from the actual Miss Kendra programme. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, good night, everybody. Sleep
Bye,
well.
everybody.
See you in the morning, hopefully.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.